Good morning, guys. It may not be morning where you are when you're watching this, but it's morning when I'm filming this in New York, a very early morning. So good morning. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is inspired by some messages that I've gotten from some lovely ladies this week. They are truly incredible messages, and I feel like I'm going to eventually start sounding like a broken record by coming on here and thanking everyone so much for the encouragement and the positive feedback and the awesome messages. But anyway, a couple of ladies messaged me on Instagram telling me how after they watched my videos, they then had the motivation to sign up for a jiu-jitsu class or call their local jiu-jitsu school, and now they're thinking about starting jiu-jitsu. I mean, holy smokes, how freaking amazing is that? That is the point of this channel. So I just feel so grateful that this channel is moving in the direction that I wanted it to move, and it's reaching people, and I just feel so happy. So anyway, in today's video, I am going to talk about what exactly you should expect when you take your first jiu-jitsu class. Look, jiu-jitsu can be very intimidating. It was the most intimidating thing I think that I've ever done. So the fact that you have signed up for your first class, or you called your school and you're thinking about signing up, that is a big step in the right direction. Before you even take your first class, something that I would recommend, which was definitely helpful for me, is if you can, try to take 1 or 2 privates with the instructor. This way you can at least get a feel for what it's like to just be on the mats, what it feels like to maybe put a gi on, and then they'll teach you the basic movements that you're going to see in the class, especially the warm-up movements. So you're probably going to learn how to forwards roll, how to backwards roll, break fall, hip escape, sit escape, all of those really basic movements that we learn in jiu-jitsu and that we usually continue to do every single day. But believe it or not, those movements are pretty difficult when you've never done them before. So I just think it's really helpful if you can squeeze in a private with your instructor before you actually take a class. I think you'll feel just a little bit more comfortable when you first step into that class. Another proactive thing that you can do before you actually take class is go to your school's website, take a look around, see who the instructors are, see what their vibe is, and sometimes they'll even have maybe like a tab that'll have their rules, what they stand for, what they believe in. Definitely take a look at that. There can be a lot of unspoken rules in the jiu-jitsu community, so being aware of what they are ahead of time is absolutely super duper helpful. For example, in some schools, they require a certain gi. The first school that I started at, I had to buy the gi that the school sold. Other schools require all white gis. Not every school is like that. I think more often than not, you can wear whatever kind of gi or no gi gear you want in class, but it definitely doesn't hurt to check it out, see what their rules are. This way, you're not buying a gi online and then you show up and you're not even allowed to wear that gi. So now, what happens when you actually go to class and you step on the mat? You might be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Everybody's gonna know I'm new. Yes, everyone is going to know you're new, but that's a good thing. Look, in jiu-jitsu, we train with the same people mostly every day, so we know usually who goes to what class times, who likes gi better than no gi. We just know. We know each other. So everyone will absolutely know that you've never been to class before. But what I've noticed and what I've experienced is jiu-jitsu people are so welcoming when you step kind of into their space. Even if you feel a little uncomfortable, just remember that they want you to be there. Now, this goes without saying. I think anyone who has a brain knows that as soon as you step on the mat, go and introduce yourself to the instructor or someone who's sitting at the front desk. You may have to fill out some paperwork and just quickly get acquainted with how the class is structured. When you're looking around the room, you might notice just a ton of different people, which is so awesome because jiu-jitsu brings all walks of life into the same place. You may see older people, teenagers, young adults, men, women, people of all different cultures, and everybody's getting along, especially nowadays. That can be pretty rare, so that's why jiu-jitsu is so awesome. You may also see people bowing when they step on the mats, and for me, when I first started, I was like, what the heck is going on here? But it's just showing a sign of respect to the mats and to the space. In my first jiu-jitsu school, we had to bow when we stepped on the mat, so that's just what I learned. In the school that I train at now, we don't have to, it's not required. I still see people do it. I feel like some people maybe are doing it out of habit still, or they just feel like they want to do that gesture. instructor. I've kind of gotten out of that habit, but just expect to see that and don't be alarmed. It's not weird. Actually, before I continue, I just want to cut in first and say every school is different. Having trained at different schools myself, I've seen how different schools are run. So everything that I'm saying may not apply to you if you're watching this, so don't come at me. I would definitely love to hear what your school does and the practices that it has. Let me know in the comments and we can have a friendly conversation, but every school is different. Now, when class is actually ready to start, the next thing that you should expect is for people to line up in front of whoever the instructor is. And now here's where things can differ. In the first school that I trained at, we lined up in belt rank order. So white belts were all the way down there, and then as you moved up in rank, you moved up on the line. Now in the school that I train at, we all line up in front of our professor, but we line up in kind of whatever place we end up. We don't line up in belt rank order, and he's made it clear that that's not important to him, which I guess is pretty cool. But don't be offended if you go to line up and you are a white belt, obviously, and you go in between a purple and a brown belt and they tell you that you gotta go to the end of the line. It just is what it is. You're a baby fish in a pool of sharks. Moving on, after lining up in either belt rank order or not, you may have to then bow to your instructor. In the school that I train at now, we do not do that. We just say hello, he introduces the class, and then we move right into the technique or the warm-up. But in my old school, we had to bow on the mats, line up in rank order, and then we had to bow to the instructor after he said hello. All right, so now that we've got all that silliness figured out, the next thing that you're going to do in class is probably do the warm-ups. I remember dreading the warm-ups for like the first, second, and third class because I thought they were so hard. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're lining up and you gotta go like 1 or 2 people at a time and everybody's watching me and I don't know what I'm doing. Look, we've all been there, we've all felt that way, and we've all just did it, pushed through, probably embarrassed ourselves, and you know, now we're all experienced. And now we can do the warm-ups in our sleep, which I do. Have you ever turned over in bed and found yourself hip escaping? Just me? But this is definitely where a private with your instructor before actually going to class can absolutely come in handy, because he or she will most likely teach you some of these basic movements that you'll see in the warm-ups. So then when you're doing it in front of the class, you won't feel so silly and so embarrassed. At least that's how I felt. If you're doing some of the warm-up movements and you're not doing them well, you have no idea how to do it, and you know, you're feeling a little stupid, don't worry. Even if people are looking at you, honestly, no one really cares. And if you're at a good school with nice people, someone may step in and try to help you. Or more importantly, the instructor will come over and try to help you. If I see someone in class and they're having trouble with one of the warm-ups, I may look at them and be like, damn, I remember when I was like that and I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm never thinking, ooh, how stupid is that person? I'm always like, okay, they're new, they can't do it. They're gonna keep coming and they're gonna learn it. I'm probably gonna do the technique wrong, embarrass myself in front of the professor at some point today in the class anyway, so no one actually cares. Also, aside from feeling like an idiot during warm-ups, expect to be tired. These are movements that your body has probably never done before, so expect to definitely be more tired than you anticipated just from warming up. Don't worry, they'll get easier. Although I'm still usually pretty exhausted after the warm-ups. Especially the no-gi warm-ups, he has us do these freaking like acrobatic movements, cartwheels, front handsprings, like all this crazy stuff. I'm exhausted after the warm-up still, and I've been training for 4.5 years. That might not be the most encouraging thing you hear in this video. Moving on to the technique portion of the class, where you will feel absolutely lost. Expect to feel lost. Expect to feel confused, and don't expect for that to ever change. Like I said, I've been training for 4.5 years and I still feel lost and confused every time I train. And I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to this point. It never fails. I can feel like I'm doing the movement perfectly, and then when my professor comes over, I mess up so bad and I'm like, listen, before you stepped over here, I promise my move was perfection. And then he looks at me like, yeah, okay. When it's time to find a partner, if you're introverted like I am, especially around new people and like big social situations, don't be afraid to join in on 2 other people that are already partners. Especially if you're a lady, find 2 other girls. They will absolutely welcome you into working with them. Preferably try to find higher belts. If it's your first class and you don't have a partner and there's women in that class who are blue belt and up, try to work with them. They might have a slight idea of what what they're doing. Maybe. Just remember, people will be happy to work with you, people will be happy to help you, and people are just happy that you're there and they're happy that you're training. And everyone can sympathize that everyone started where you are starting. All right, so now you survived the technique portion of the class, you feel totally confused, you have no recollection of what the heck you just learned. Now it's time to roll. It is the best part of the class. But come to think of it, you might not actually be allowed to roll. Some instructors, if it's your first class or second class, they may not let you get right on in there. For me, I didn't. When I first took class, I think my first class I just watched and just kind of got an idea of what rolling actually meant. So if you're not allowed to roll in your first class, or if you just choose not to roll, that is totally okay. It is 100% okay to not roll during your first class. I actually recommend not and just watching. When you watch people rolling, it's not really gonna look like anything that you can understand. It's gonna look like a bunch of bodies like flying at each other. It's gonna look like a bunch of limbs getting all tangled up in each other. It's gonna look like sweaty people grunting, making noises, and just getting all up in each other's business. But I promise, when you do it, when you feel comfortable enough to hop in there and start rolling, it is the best part of class. It is the part of class where you can test yourself. It is the part of class where you're going to get the most exhausted, and it's the part of class where you can see if you retained anything that you learned in the technique portion of the class. If it's your first class and you decided to roll, expect to be the most exhausted you have ever felt in your entire life. I don't care what fitness background you have. I don't care what workouts you normally do. I don't care if you ran a half marathon, a triathlon. I don't care. There is no workout like jiu-jitsu. It is pure exhaustion, but the best kind of feeling in the entire world. It can depend on the class, but rounds usually last anywhere between 4 to 6 minutes on average. If it's like a competition class, then the rounds can last longer for sure. But in your average class, usually 4, 5, or 6 minute rounds. And there's usually 5 or 6 rounds. So it's really tiring. But once the rolling portion of the class is done, class is over and you have survived your first jiu-jitsu class. To end the class, expect to once again line up in front of your professor, whether that's in just whatever random order that people fall into, or it may be again in belt rank order. Sometimes you have to bow out, sometimes you don't. And then usually you will all stay in the line and walk kind of around each other and give everybody like a high five or a fist bump, just kind of showing that no matter what happened in that class, no matter what happened in the roles, you all still are showing respect to your training partners and your teammates. So that is it. That's generally how a class is structured. Like I said, every school is different, every program is different, and every class might be structured a little bit differently than another class. But generally, that's what's gonna happen. If you have any other questions on what you might expect in a class, or if you need me to elaborate more on anything that I talked about, DM me on Instagram, leave a comment below. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel. And until the next video, I will see you guys next time.